Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars-loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows, while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
And I'm Charles Rogers, who, yes, let's get this out of the way, has been informed after recording the anniversary episode, thank you, Bradley, that I could very easily fix the whole host thing by simply saying, and I'm your host, Charles Rogers. The problem with that is that I've been doing things this way for a year, and change terrifies me. So I'm going to eat this one. This is entirely on me, Bradley. I am inflicting this pain on myself. Well, after I just monopolized the entire intro, we have a little bit of housekeeping before we get started.
Okay.
This week, we have the thing Charles fucked up. But it's a thing Charles fucked up that Charles or Bradley didn't catch. This was caught by a listener.
Interesting.
Who I'm not going to put on blast. But if he wants to, I will tag who it was on Twitter. But a longtime listener alerted me on Twitter. So I had said that, and Bradley, I'm going to put this on you partly too. Okay. I had said that Mark Hamill had voiced Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian Season 2, and Book of Boba Fett was using the respoiler. That is inaccurate. It is the respoiler both times. This is apparently mentioned in the gallery.
I don't remember. I need to watch it again.
Or some behind the scenes footage, and I just missed it, or I didn't watch that bit of it because I only watched clips.
Terrible fuck up. I mean, you were mostly right.
I was mostly correct, but yes, that is an error on my part. So sorry to the fucking computer.
Right, I was gonna say to the AI
properly.
My bad, AI. Like,
fucking.
Well, technically,
Don't
you should apologize.
Me.
Right. I was gonna say you should apologize because now.
I am terribly sorry, robot overlords. Please don't come for me. I also have a not necessarily a thing Charles fucked up, but a thing Charles found interesting about some previous criticism. So you know how Boba doesn't fucking talk in episode 6?
Yes.
Like he's there and he doesn't talk. So apparently what happened was that wasn't the script, the original script. Apparently, Tamura Morrison requested that a lot of Boba's lines be changed over to Finnick. Now, I've read two different reasons why. I have heard some people saying that it's because he thought Ming-Na Wen's part wasn't big enough. I have seen some people saying that he just didn't think Boba as a character would be that talkative. Either way, apparently the Boba not talking was a Tamura Morrison choice.
I mean, I think I see it with the Fennec Shan thing because we did get her in this a lot because they've been together this whole time. But I do like that she is essentially taking on this role of like first lieutenant, and it would make sense thematically that your first lieutenant would be giving everybody commands, not you necessarily directly.
There would be a layer of chain of command
right
here.
So
it makes sense for Fennec to be enforcing that.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of us were upset because, you know, it felt like Boba was being shafted, which I still do feel like that to an extent. Knowing that it was a Tamura Morrison choice, I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. I also have a side fun fact that I discovered while researching this, which is I discovered Ming-Na Wen's first television role. And I could not believe where Ming-Na Wen originated.
That's okay. Wait. So as far as I know personally, her earliest thing was Mulan. So please enlighten me on what her first thing was.
I'm going to give you some clues, Bradley, and I'm not going to make you do this for... It was actually a conversation I was having with Jordan, our artist, and Aaron, who's a frequent guest on the show, that I discovered this. I made them guess. It took the two of them about 10 minutes to arrive at it. Okay. I'm not going to take up 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm going to give you a few hints on what Ming-Na Wen's very first television role was. So hint number 1, it is a children's show. Hint number 2, it aired for a very long time, but she first appeared in it in the 80s. Hint number 3, there are puppets in it. And hint number 4, is I have a complicated relationship with this show.
So, I mean, unless you and Elmo have like a really weird like thing, I don't know if it's okay. Sesame Street is my first guess.
Okay, that is wrong, but it's a good guess. It is a very good guess. I believe they aired on the same network.
Ooh, okay. What else? Okay, kids show with puppets. You have a complicated relationship with the show. I have a
complicated relationship with this show.
Okay, what's your complicated relationship?
Let me phrase this in a non-spoilery way. I am very used to hearing the name of this show said out loud to me.
Okay. So I'm in my head, I'm being a B2 or a B1 battle droid or whatever, and I'm like, Roger. And I'm like saying your name in my head over and over again. So it's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood then.
It is Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Okay.
Ming-Na wins, yes. Ming-Na wins first appearance that I can find in anything ever was trumpet player number 3 in 2 episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and I believe 1985 or 87, I want to say. I don't have it up in front of me. That was a fun fact that I found. The last thing before we dive into the episode is they gave us a fucking release date for something.
Oh, wow. It's almost like we can plan out some of our year now.
It's almost like we can plan exactly when the show is going to happen.
Thank God.
And they gave it to us 3 months in advance. Thank you, Lucasfilm, for doing this for us.
Well, not only did they give us the date of Kenobi, they've also previously given us the episode number. So it makes planning on our end, like what we're going to cover, so much easier because like we know that there's only 6 episodes. So we know like, okay, now that we know the start date, we know how many episodes we're going to have, what dates we're recording, what everything. So it's great. Like we know our whole month of May and I'm sorry, not May.
Of June
is set in stone. So we're great.
Yes. Bradley and I were just having a extended hour-long meeting, literally just about the schedule and nothing else, trying to work it out, which we're very happy to have an actual release date. Do Bad Batch next, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully by next week we'll have Bad Batch information and then we can figure out the rest.
So we have the title of the show, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everybody calls it Kenobi, I think because people have been calling it Kenobi since like 2014, 2015, when we first started hearing rumors of a Kenobi movie. And people have just been calling it Kenobi.
Yeah.
We got a release date, and we also got a poster, which features Obi-Wan on a mysterious unknown desert planet full of sand.
I wonder what desert planet that is.
I wonder what planet it's on. There's not a lot to overanalyze in this trailer, and somehow people have found a way to do that.
Right, poster.
And it's over the lightsaber, or the poster. Yeah, we haven't gotten a trailer. It's the lightsaber he's holding.
Okay.
People are zooming like super in on it, and they're like, oh, it kind of looks like the Skywalker saber. And so I kind of zoomed in on it and kind of tilted my head to the side and went, I mean, yeah, I could kind of see that.
I mean, I guess. Right.
I don't know if it's that deep.
I mean, I don't think it matters. I think it's just his lightsaber, but okay, whatever. Like, it's not a big deal.
I'm being cautiously optimistic about the show. I like that it's a limited series. I like that it's divorced from the Mandalorian stuff, that it's going to kind of stand on its own. Hopefully, Obi-Wan Kenobi is in it. That would be nice.
Right. Like, watch it be the whole entire thing is like, oh, just kidding. It has nothing to do with Kenobi. It's like,
just kidding. I've heard some interesting like rumors, and we don't cover rumors on the show, but I have heard some interesting rumors of characters that are going to pop up, and I'm like, oh, that's super interesting. This show sounds awesome. We do know that Ewan McGregor has said that Hayden Christensen is playing scenes as Anakin Skywalker as well.
Oh, interesting.
We don't know the context, but we know that Hayden is playing scenes as Anakin.
Interesting, because okay, so we'll do a quick little Bradley's book corner. So I told you I was reading the second Thrawn book.
Yes.
And I'm almost done with it. And what this book is making me realize is how similar, I mean, I know it's stupid to say, But like I've always divorced the character of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader as two separate characters. Like I've never really seen them as the same character. And this book does a really interesting job of like showing you like Anakin and Darth Vader are literally the same. Like the way that they act, the things that they do and stuff. Like it's just one is in the guise of I'm doing everything right. The other one is in a guise of I'm just the villain now. It doesn't matter. Like, so it's very interesting, like dynamic. And when I'm reading it or listening to it, it's funny how Anakin talks versus how Darth Vader presents himself. He's very like stoic a little bit more. And it's funny because now I'm like, oh, we might be able to hopefully see that on screen because you forget they're the same person sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if we've had a good on-screen representation of that necessarily, because when he shows up in Rebels, other than being a very good pilot, there's not a whole lot to connect him directly to really Anakin, except when like, because when, you know, Ahsoka slices his mask off.
Right.
But other than that, you know, they don't fight the same way. They don't move the same way. They don't really speak the same way in that. The original trilogy, Rogue One, obviously that's portraying a very different Vader than, you know, that was not done with Hayden Christensen's performance in mind. So it could be interesting to get more into that duality between them.
It's funny because you said everybody calls it Kenobi. And then with this show, Book of Boba, we call it Book of Boba, but it's not called Book of Boba. It's called the Book of Boba Fett. So it's funny how we call it Book of Boba, and then that's not even the name of the show.
I don't think we've ever fucking said the name of a show right. We've always said The Mandalorian is Mando. Mando season 1, Mando season 2, Book of Boba.
You
Kenobi,
always want to shorten it.
Bad Batch. I feel like the first one we're going to get right is Ahsoka.
Because it's just called Ahsoka.
It's just called Ahsoka.
For now, we don't
mess that up.
We don't know if they'll change the name.
They could change I mean, they had a logo made and everything. So.
Like hell, what if it's called like Ahsoka: The Search for Thrawn? Like, I mean,
oh my god, like some terrible fucking 90s TV show.
The Search for Ezra Bridger.
The Search for Ezra Bridger. Now that we've talked entirely too long about the one single Kenobi image and one quote from Ewan McGregor, let's dive into the episode. Bradley, do you want to read us in so we are not sitting here all night?
This week, the Book of Boba Fett comes to a close with the War of Mos Espa. Boba rides his Rancor, the people of Freetown help defeat the Pykes, and the Mandalorian and Grogu are reunited. Charles, what's one thing you liked and one thing you did not?
God damn, the Grogu puppet is impressive. Like the little details on it.
It's getting
like,
so good.
The way that he like grabs Mando's thumb at one point is this tiny little motion you'd never notice. The way that the puppet just moves, like, good Lord, the puppetry on this thing is unbelievable. Like, that is a real baby Yoda.
Yeah,
that is an actual small Yoda that is there. I no longer believe that this is a puppet. Like, I do not believe this anymore. That was the thing that I liked, definitely. And also, I sort of like the overall vibe of the episode, too. I thought it was fun. It was very like those movies that they split into two parts that were big in like the late 2000s. And you would have all the setup in the first movie, and then the second movie was just like an extended climax. This felt like just an extended climax, basically, with everything coming to heel. And I do love that vibe. One thing I didn't like, I did not think that there was necessarily enough payoff to Boba and Fennec's relationship through the series. They had their little scrap at the beginning over the spice, which we'll talk about. But then Fennec basically goes away for half the episode, which is an issue in and of itself. But I would have preferred to see some sort of clear conclusion to the arc of the relationship of these two characters, because it's there, but a lot of it is in just the subtext. They never really come out and necessarily say, you know, you were right, I was wrong, et cetera, et cetera. I would have preferred to see that. I felt like it would have landed a little more emotionally there. I'm also going to do a didn't like for the entire series up to this point. I feel like they played a little too secretive with some of the stuff that was important in the finale, particularly Cad Bane. I felt like if Cad Bane was going to be the final villain, he should have been introduced or at least mentioned a lot sooner. I felt like his stuff was undercut somewhat by the fact he basically just comes out of nowhere to be the final boss. And he's not mentioned up until this point. So that was a couple of things I liked and didn't like. Bradley, why don't you give us your like and dislike?
Yeah, I agree with you slightly. I just wanted to agree with you real quick before I did mine, because I think
love it when people agree with me. Please agree with me more.
I think the problem with the Cad Bane villain is that I know this is stupid to say, but it's a little fan servicey in the fact that it's like they expect us to know who he is. And it's like, well, you're watching a Star Wars thing, right? So you should know who every single fucking person in the background is. You should know who every villain is without us having to explain and handhold and tell you who it is. But for the terms of like just a television show and like introducing this to a brand new person, like you should be able to watch this show and not have to explain anything to anybody. They should just be able to start from the very beginning and enjoy it and know things as the show progresses. And so I think the problem with introducing Cad Bane as the villain in that aspect is that people don't know who he is if you don't tell us who he is.
They didn't do any mention of him before he shows up in episode 6. There was nothing. And in episode 6, he's like, I am an ominous enforcer, which is cool and fine. And then episode 7 really wants to lean into the history between Boba and Cad Bane. History which, even if you watched all of the released visual media, you would not know necessarily that history, because it was in an arc that never got made.
Right.
From the Clone Wars. So, all right. Liked and disliked.
Yeah, liked and disliked. Sorry, I know this is what's going to happen this whole entire episode, because
we don't know how to function without a guest.
I know, it's so hard to talk about this stuff. Okay. One thing I liked, I really enjoyed the Rancor. I thought that plot line serviced me in a way that I was happy enough.
Did you enjoy getting serviced by the Rancor?
I was trying to turn this into a sexual thing.
It
without being weird.
It was very clearly there, and you need to just embrace it. Listen,
I was trying to be subtextual, but
listen, I have spent this entire show and the High Republic comics run coming to the realization that I am a monster fucker. It is okay, Bradley, if you want to join me in being serviced by the Rancor.
So I was gonna say, I really enjoyed the Rancor, except for the fact that we didn't get a name. I was really hoping, like, because they set it up.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
he literally says, "What are we gonna call you?" And then they never gave him a name. That pissed me off so much. Like, I wanted him to be like, "Whoa, Jabba Jr." Like, stop. You know what I mean? Like, whatever he's gonna call the fucking thing. Yeah, come on, Stinky. Like, let's go. Like, you know. I needed him to say something or call him something, or being like, that's your Rancor. And he's like, yeah, this is my little chubby boy, or whatever his name is. Like, I don't know, but that, I don't want to say that's my dislike, because that's a tiny little like blip.
Nitpick.
But yeah, it's a nitpick, but because he doesn't really need
It's
name.
A like with an asterisk.
Right. Well, it's almost like
thing you liked, but it could have been better.
Right. It's like, the only reason why he would even need a name is for merchandising reasons, you know, instead of just Boba Fett riding Rancor, like it would be like Boba Fett riding Stinky. Like, you know, that's all it would be for. One thing I did not like, I agree, I didn't like the Fennec Shan thing, in that she just kind of is here and then she's there, like, and that's it. That's one thing I didn't really like. But my major thing I did not like was that there was no resolution to the Tuscan storyline. In the fact that they wrote it off as just hey, we didn't tell Boba that, you know, we killed the Tuscans. And then it's just like, Cad Bane's just like, oh yeah, by the way, the Pykes killed the Tuscans. And then Boba's like, I'm mad. And then Fennec's like, no, you're not. You need to relax. And he's like, okay, that's fine. And then he forgets it, and it's not a thing. And then they never mention the Tuscans ever again the whole entire episode. And I just like, I needed the Tuscans to all band together and come help Boba in the final fight.
I have a note where when he ran to get the Rancor, I thought he was going to go get like surviving Tuscans. Like, I got really hopeful for a second that was going to be, and then it wasn't. And I loved the Rancor, and when he showed up on the Rancor, I thought it was badass, but I couldn't help feeling a little disappointed.
You almost needed them to be in it to help the whole entire arc of the whole entire story to kind of make sense.
Because here's the problem with that. I was going to talk about it later, but I guess I'll talk about it now. The problem with the way the Tuscan thing came in this episode was it still had no bearing whatsoever on the plot.
Yeah.
None. Like, the Pykes killed the Tuscans, which, for the record, we all saw coming.
Yeah.
Like, it was super obvious. The surprise was that Boba didn't know. But the fact that the Pykes killed the Tuscans exists for no other purpose than to get Boba emotional. It does not contribute to the plot in any way. And Finnick is there to talk him down from getting emotional. So
instantly, like it's like very instant.
It's very instant. Like, it's not even a big, like, dramatic moment.
He gets more emotional when Cad Bane is talking shit to him about his past. Like, you know what I mean?
And like, I feel like you could have, once again, you could have done the exact same story beats.
Yeah.
Do it slightly differently so you don't wipe the Tuscans out, or do this slightly more sensitively and tell exactly the same story. So yeah, I 100% agree with you that was basically unresolved and just vestigial hanging on to this episode.
Well, what they needed to do, and I think this would have been the easy solution, was when the people of Freetown came to join the fight, being like, look, here's the people of Freetown. Also, the Tuscans, who are chummy with the people of Freetown because they work together to kill the crate dragon.
Oh my God.
Like, bring them into all together. And they would have joined easily, because they could have gone and asked the Tuscans, been like, hey, you guys want to come help us do Boba Fett? And then they'd be like, oh yeah, we heard about that guy through other things, because the warrior survived the massacre, and she brings in the rest of the Tuscan people to help Boba, and then they stay and they live in the town, and everybody's happy-dappy at the very end.
Yeah, like, it almost feels wrong to do the people of Tatooine band together without including the Tuscans, especially since the show spent so much time, and Mando season 2 set up that Freetown has good relations with the Tuscans now.
Yeah.
This will perpetually annoy me about the show probably until the day I die.
Yeah.
How this was handled.
Yeah.
Because it probably is the most glaring, non-overlookable problem in the show, was the handling of the Tuscan storyline after episode 2. Take us in, Bradley.
Chapter 7 begins with Boba and Finnick in the ruins of the sanctuary. Mando promises a garrison is on the way, and the mods suggest taking a stand in town. Meanwhile, Cad Bane confers with the Pike Syndicate, who reveal it was they who killed the Tuscans. Cad Bane has a plan to draw Boba out. Title card, in the name of honor.
I want to talk briefly about the little conflict between Finnick and Boba.
Mm-hmm.
When Din is like, yeah, Freetown will help, but no spice. And Boba's like, okay. And Finnick's like, well, hold on here. Because here's the thing. We got student loans. And that's a lot of money that you're throwing away.
Right.
And I like both that they're having a disagreement about it, but I also like how they're handling it, because it's not played as like an argument. They're having a discussion about it. It's very clear that Boba's the one making the call, but he listens to Finnick, and instead of just saying, no, we're not doing that, he explains to her why they're not doing that, and walks her through it. So I like that aspect to their relationship. Those two, like, we need another season, if only so we have more time to spend with those two.
Yeah, I do feel that, like, we got some hints of, like, a good relationship there, but I just need a little more. Like, I need something else. Like, it just wasn't enough.
We need moments like the dinner scene in episode 4. You know, we need moments where, like, the conversation at the end of the same episode where they're just talking. We need moments like in episode 1 where she leans over and it's like, do you want me to kill him?
Right.
Like, we needed more small moments like that, especially as the show progressed.
And I also kind of feel like, if anything, they should have taken the Mando episode out and shrunk it down and put in a Fennec central episode that was just about Fennec, just from her point of view, just about her character, one whole arc featuring just her. I think that would have made the show stronger, because I feel like they tried to do that in the Mods episode.
Or they do it as a B plot in the Mando episode. Like include her in the B plot of that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So do half and half, like do half Mando, half her. Yeah, that would have worked.
Or involve her. Yeah, or involve her once they reach Tatooine. Don't wait until the end of the episode.
That's true.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Though.
But she needed like a more central theme. Like she needed her own arc, because I feel like she doesn't have one in this show. Like it's not, or if it is, it's not very strong, because she doesn't change. She doesn't, nothing happens to her.
We'll get to it, but she's kind of changed by the last little sequence. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't a big dramatic kind of change, nor was it very well telegraphed to the audience at all. Right. Mock Shies is a piece of shit.
Well, karma's real, so.
Yep. We'll get to that later in the episode.
Maybe something will happen to him later on. We don't know.
This fucking asshole. Oh my god. Mock Shies.
He isn't a way. And the other way though, he does reveal, like, he's like, hey, whoa, like I didn't sign on to like kill Garza. Like he's like, that's not what I wanted.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because it's all practicality, and it's the thing with like the General Pike allies.
Yeah, is
their whole thing is what's doing the right thing for their bottom line. He didn't want to blow up. He doesn't want to not blow up Mos Espa because he cares about it at all. It's his city that he owns. He doesn't want his property destroyed.
Right.
Like, I think it's very telling. I watched Star Wars Explained, Alex Damon's review, and I'm going to reference it several times because it really changed the way that I looked at this episode on the second viewing. But I believe he references in that review that this is a big difference between the Pike group and Boba's group. Is Boba's on the ground in Mos Espa fighting. Mm-hmm. And the Pykes and their allies are holed up in a desert survey office in the next town over, like cowering behind their guards and sending foot soldiers out to die for them.
Yeah.
Pykes, I have in my notes, Pykes are all about business versus Boba, who's all about people. I do like that they refer to it as the Fett Gatra in this scene.
Yeah.
I like the mark that it is an actual family now. A small one that we're about to try to blow up, but the Fett Gatra is a real thing.
There you go. It's canon now.
It's canon now.
Up next, a familiar X-Wing lands in Pelimoto's hangar. Unexpectedly, it's just Grogu, coming to give her a visit. R2-D2 reveals his name to her, and she does not like it. And she knows his metal shirt that he's wearing.
So we get a Rogue One style over-the-shoulder X-Wing shot as it approaches Mos Eisley, which I wanted to point out because I call it the 3D shot.
Okay.
In Rogue One. There's a few shots like it that are very clearly in the movie because it's going to look impressive on the 3D, on the IMAX. This is that same shot. Real fast, before I get to my one big note about this segment. Dung worms are apparently from an episode 1 video game. That they're a holdover from Legends. I thought that was weird. It was in the Star Wars Explained Easter eggs video. I forgot to write down which video game it was, but this is not the first time we've seen dung worms, and I thought that was an odd fun fact.
Okay, cool.
R2-D2 and Pelimoto interacting is everything to me.
Like, why is that? One, why has that not already happened? And then two, can this happen again, please?
Can this happen more? Because you know that R2-D2 canonically swears like every other word.
Right.
Like, that's why he beats. He's constantly being bleeped out. It's like one of our TikToks that I'm using the droid bleep for, but it's every single word he says.
And I just realized too, like, I never thought about their dynamic because you forget that R2-D2 is a Sass Queen, and Pelimoto is like she doesn't take shit from droids. Like she tells them what to do. Like she doesn't like go like, she knows she is better than them. She's like, I am your boss, you listen to me. And it's funny that like he's trying to sass her and she's like hold your like bolts or whatever she says to him.
I loved it. I love that you can tell the sass that's like being thrown between these two individuals, and one of them you can't understand what they're saying or even see him. He's stationary. He doesn't move. I just absolutely, I think it's a testament to Amy Sedaris's acting, as well as the sound design for R2-D2.
Yeah. And I'm going to start a petition now. I want everybody to know this. I want this to be on the record. Like, I think Amy Sedaris needs to be the Easter egg that carries through like every Star Wars show. So I need her to be in every single one, regardless of timeline, regardless of anything. Like she needs to be in at least one episode of every single Star Wars TV show, because that way she'll be that interconnecting, Marvel whatever thing that connects all the things.
Pelimoto is the Nick Fury of the Star Wars.
She needs to be in every single content. Like maybe not Kenobi, because it might not make sense for her to be in Kenobi, or maybe it does. I don't know.
Young Pelimoto. You could have a very young Pelimoto.
Holy shit! Yes,
like a little 5 or 6 year old
little weird girl
with a little curly hair and sassing off at the adults.
Yes,
like, I can see. Yes.
Oh my god, no! I want her to bump into Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine and be like, "Hey, watch it!" Like kind of thing. Like, how fucking funny would that be? She's like, "Watch it, Slimo!"
I would lose my goddamn mind if they did the Jeddah scene with the fucking guys from New Hope, but it's Pelimoto just randomly being in everything.
Yeah, she'd be like, "Hey, I'm walking here," like And Oh my god. Okay. God. Please, Jon Favreau. I don't know if you have any power or anything, but
John, please. I know you listen to the show. It's not too late. You can call Deborah Chow and have them insert a scene into.
That's right. Just add it. Just
have it be an end credit scene on Kenobi. Just come on. Give this to us.
She literally has some of the best scenes in this episode. Like, and honestly, I was shocked that she was in this show so much that she was, because I felt like she's kind of like only in like a hot second in Mando. And so when she finally has room to breathe and like actually do stuff on this show, like she's fucking hilarious. And she's one of the best characters on the show.
Her chemistry with David Pascasi in their comedic interactions together was gold.
Yeah,
like,
I need more of that.
Absolutely gold. I will have several points where I note how much I love the Major Domo in this episode.
Yeah.
But his scenes with Pelimoto are easily some of the funniest stuff in the episode, just the way those two play off each other.
Mm-hmm. I do like the joke that the meta joke that she brings up, where she goes, Grogu, that's a terrible name. I'm not going to call you that. Where in reality, we all don't call him that either. We call him Baby Yoda.
So I have sort of an issue with the writing around the prequels, in that some of it did not take the prequels very seriously. Like it was clear that the people writing some of this stuff just thought it was ridiculous and was poking fun at it. And it was in a very mean-spirited way. I felt like this is what that should have been. Grogu is a stupid name.
Yeah.
It really is. We all love the character so much. When the show makes fun of how stupid the name is, it hits different. I do love that joke. Also, Amy Sedaris delivers it. And
right. I think that's part of why it works, because she's not doing it in a malicious way, but it's the way her delivery of the line is as well. She's like, what? That's a terrible name. Like, because he doesn't necessarily, he can't speak back, and he can't tell her like, you're being mean to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a funny, like playful kind of thing. So it's just hilarious how she does that. I love how that she speaks to R2-D2, who tells her that, which is hilarious too. Back in Mos Espa, the gang waits for the Freetown reinforcements. While the rest of the gang is split up between all the crime boss territories, Boba confronts Cad Bane. Bane reveals who actually killed the Tuscans. Fennec talks Boba down, terminating the negotiations.
we finally have resolution to a point that I have been bringing up for weeks. And that is, where the fuck did the Queen's ship land in Phantom Menace? We finally have some resolution, because the tracking shot of Mos Espa, if we look at it, we can kind of see what actually looks like the edge of it. So it looks like it is surrounded by desert, and it looks like it's not as sprawling as some of the other shots made it appear. Like, it's big, but it's mostly concentrated in that sinkhole and kind of around one side. And we can see kind of the edge of it. So it's perfectly conceivable that you would park a starship outside and just walk into one of the shitty used car dealers in the edge of town and bank the entire fate of the galaxy on it.
Well, also, if you're trying to avoid, quote unquote, the airport, because we do see, you know, when
they are trying to avoid the huts.
Right.
They are trying to avoid drawing attention from the huts. So it would make sense to land outside on the outskirts and walk in.
Walk a few.
When in reality, Mos Espa looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
When they're divvying everyone up, when they say Chrysanthemum is in Trandoshan territory, my first thought was, why?
Yeah, same. I was like, that's
why?
A great idea.
That's a great idea, Boba.
Well, it's almost like
Chrysanthemum to literally the one place he's surrounded by people he wants to murder.
Right. It's also too, like, even ignoring the actual plot of they all get attacked, you know, at the same time. If he is in that place, that means Trandoshans don't like him either. You know what I mean? Like, they're all going to be like, oh, there's a fucking Wookiee, like, just walking around our area. Like, you know what I mean?
Not only a Wookiee, but it's a Wookiee who, like, kills us and rips our limbs off.
Right, which they've heard about already, because they all would know it by now that he did that earlier. So it is just a strange choice to have him there. I feel like that's just kind of like one of those cheap shots where it's kind of like, well, they have a relationship together, so let's just put him in that area.
We will find out later why Chrysanthemum was put in the Trandoshan territory. Yeah. Narratively speaking, there's no way Boba, in fact, quite specifically does not know what's about to happen in the next sequence.
Right.
But we, the viewer, can go, oh. Cad Bane says, if that's not the Quacta calling the Stifling slimy.
I hate when Star Wars does this.
Well, look, if I had a nickel for every time a character said, if that's not the Quacta calling the Stifling slimy, in a live action TV show, in a scene with Boba Fett in it, and Boba Fett is one of the people involved, I would have 2 nickels. Which is not a lot of nickels, but it is weird that it's happened twice.
Right.
It's the exact line that Boba delivers to Casca Reeves in Mando Season 2's finale.
Oh, interesting.
So, I believe Star Wars Explained raised the point that it is either he raised it or somebody else raised it, that it's possible it's a thing Cad Bane says, and Boba picked it up from him.
Huh.
Cad Bane says, you know it's true, giving me search your feelings, you know it to be true vibes. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. Yes, we're doing that again. I do want to highlight very specifically the fact that Fennec Shand is 100% right in this scene when she talks Boba down. And this kind of illustrates why he needs her.
Right.
Because she's ever the pragmatist. He's very, very emotionally driven. And so he needs her to balance him out and make smart choices. And she needs him to stop her from just murdering people when they annoy her, but I thought it was interesting the way that scene played out with them.
I feel like, she was there for that scene, but then it, like, immediately, you know, in the next scene, she's gone, like, and off to do something. So it's just kind of weird that they kind of didn't keep her around.
She has one last little sequence and she's gone for most of the rest of the episode before turning back up in spectacular fashion.
Right.
That we will get to, because that's probably my favorite scene in the whole episode.
Suddenly, the rest of the group is in trouble as the local syndicates attack the Gamorrean guards, the mods, and Chrysanthemum. Fennec heads off to handle the bosses and saves the mods along the way.
Oh, so that's why we put Chrysanthemum in the Trandoshan territory, so he can have a fucking giant Wookiee on Trandoshan fight that is metal as hell.
I love this scene because I did feel the emotional weight of both the Gamorrean guards being attacked, which is weird because we haven't really spent a lot of time with them to like really care too much.
Rip those guys. Like I felt genuinely
like
bad
sad
when they died.
You were like, holy shit. Like they didn't even need to die.
They died to raise the emotional stakes. Like they died because there's got to be casualties. I wouldn't necessarily call it fridging because this is a situation where there are going to be casualties and they are foot soldiers. But for not knowing a lot about them, I genuinely felt just from their performances and their role in the story alone bad when they died.
I didn't like though how they kind of we don't really know until later on, but they fake us on Chrysanthemum being quote unquote killed.
They make it look like Chrysanthemum
make it like he's being overwhelmed. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I know Black Chrysanthemum. That's not how Black Chrysanthemum is gonna go out. No, ma'am.
No.
I did not buy for a single second that Wookiee was a goner.
Gotcha. See,
did not buy it.
On the one hand, I didn't think so, but on the other hand, I was thinking like, oh, this is one of those things where like, oh, well, they don't really know what to do with him anymore, like writing wise. They're like, we'll just kill him because we don't really have that much to do anymore.
And my final note for this sequence, as Finnick saves the mods, I have in my notes written here, and I cannot sum it up better than this. Finnick Shand, punch me, please. She's so cool.
So she kind of relates to them, and it's like a nice thing because I like how she I feel like Drash kind of looks to Finnick almost like a surrogate mother figure. It's very quick. It takes it's a hot second in the scene. And then especially when Finnick's like, oh, manners, I appreciate that. Like, it was
that
thing.
Line where I noted Finnick Shand hit me, please. Because she's so cool and awesome. She flips down and then she has the little one-liners and I'm like,
right. And so this scene makes me think this is what we could be getting if we had Omega in the show. We could be getting someone who looks to Finnick as quote a surrogate kind of mother figure, and then Boba is technically her brother but also could be surrogate father figure because she has 5 brothers that she's growing up with right now technically. So
she would be older. So you almost could do it kind of as a family dynamic of
it would be so weird, but it would be cool because they're all technically the same. But
Finnick Shand, this being her right up until the end of the episode when she comes back, last appearance for a while, I just note how cool she is all the time, and I love her.
Back at the sanctuary, the Pykes confront Boba. He sends out the mayor's major domo to negotiate nothing. During the distraction, they begin their attack. Just as they're about to be overwhelmed, the people of Freetown come to help save the day. The mods show up to help, and we see Chrysanthemum made it back alive. The Pykes begin to fall back.
If you shipped Boba and Din before this episode, this was a very good episode for you. Because I'm sorry, but I'm with you until we both fall. That's some fucking wedding vow shit right there. That's some old school Mandalorian marriage shit.
I think because of the last episode where we left Mando, he doesn't really care about anything anymore because he realizes he had to leave Grogu forever, essentially. So he's like, all right, well, if I die, I die,
Shit. Oh.
I wasn't thinking this is a romantic thing, but okay, you do you.
I was offhandedly making a joke about how Boba Din shippers are fed this episode. Because shipping is very, very fun to engage with. But now you've mentioned that this whole thing may be about Din just not wanting to be alive anymore after Grogu. And now I'm just blankly staring at the map that sits across from my desk, wondering when the happiness will return to my life.
Well, now, but if you think about it, he's kind of not even depressed. He's at the point now where he's well, it's okay if I put myself in danger. It's okay if I do all these things because I don't actually have, it doesn't matter if I live. If I go out fighting as a warrior, that's better than nothing. So he's kind of well, I'm going to go out being a Mandalorian now because that's all I have left.
It's interesting that you should say that he has the mentality of I'm going to go out being a Mandalorian, because I want to kind of talk about a different perspective on episode 5. Because as you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts and there's a lot of different diverse hosts. And I've heard some different takes on Mando's relationship with his religion in terms of how people of different backgrounds that didn't necessarily grow up in a specifically Christian background view the concept of religion and rules. And I specifically want to point out Rupalp's Pod Race, when they did episode 5, they said some stuff on there that made me think about Din's relationship with the creed in a very different way. They talked about how for some people, the rules aren't restrictions. They're almost kind of freeing in a way. It's a sense of identity to be able to follow them. And I love the conversation between Din and Boba, where Boba's like, you really believe all that Bantha shit? And Din's like, yeah, I really do. And then Boba says, good. Because I think it highlights, one, we can say, oh, the armorer is running a cult all day long, which I still believe that she is. That doesn't change the fact that the Mandalorian creed is important to Din.
Right.
He has chosen, he's had multiple chances to not choose this. And most of the times he's gone back to it because it's something that's important to him. And it's also something that Boba has never had. Boba has never had, up until this point, a sense of honor. He's never had any sort of code to live by. He just did whatever was necessary to get the job done. And that's the way that Jango was raising him. So it's almost like Boba's envious of Din in a way, of being so certain of something, when Boba himself only recently discovered the certainty of believing in something. For 3 lines of dialogue, it's really fucking interesting.
Yeah, I know. You can really dive deep into these shows, you know? It's almost like you have a podcast about them or something.
Yes, it's almost like I've ruined my brain. Yeah, and I think all this capping off with when Din cocks his gun and says, this is the way, I was like, yes, this is the way is back, motherfuckers. This phrase is badass again. Because it's Din actively making the choice.
Right.
It's not this is the way and yes, I must adhere to this because this is my cult. Din has actively made the choice. I am going to live by the creed. I have made the choice to attach myself to this situation with Boba. I am ride or die now, literally. This is the way.
This is the way.
And I think that's part of the importance of episode 5, particularly the first half of it, of why did we take so long with the Mandalorians? We really needed to dive into, in the context of this specific show, I said, Din is going to need to make a choice, and I feel like we're doing setup to inform that choice. Here is where that choice is, that he has made to stay with Boba. So that was me overanalyzing 4 lines of dialogue in a children's TV show to talk about the importance of religion to people personally and how complicated it is. Go listen to Rupalp's Pod Race. It's a very good show.
Well, let's talk about the major demo first, because I don't want to jump.
Yes, let's talk about the fucking major domo in this scene.
First of all, can we give him a name? Like, he needs a name.
No.
It's I think we should just call him David Pesquesi, because I think that's just what his name is in the show, because clearly they don't want to give him a name.
The joke is that no one gives enough of a shit about him to ask what his name is.
What his name is, just a jive title. Like, he's like, I'm the mayor's major domo. That's great.
He's like, oh, what is that character on Parks and Rec that everyone constantly gets his name wrong? Because they don't. Jerry. Yeah. So Gary on Parks and Rec, the guy that they don't bother to ever learn his name.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like it's that same situation.
The mayor, actually, fun fact, did you know that the major domo's name is Jerry?
I didn't know that, but now that that information has entered my brain, I will immediately forget it because it is of no relevance to me whatsoever.
So when Gary finally goes out and
talks to the bike, I it's just no perfect comic acting. Like,
he's been so good this whole show. I think he just has like just a little bit amount of comedic timing that you just need. Like he has this character down. He does this thing with his hands where he talks with his hands. Like, it's so good. Like, and he just knows what he wants to say when he wants to say it, and just the right, like, kind of almost skeezy, kind of like snivelly way.
If there's a master class in comic acting, and it's this character right here. This is how you do it, particularly in the back half of the show.
Right.
Like, oh, it's so funny.
Well, let's talk about his qualifications.
Yes. He attended a finishing school. He spills his whole fucking life story.
Right.
Literally just to say, hey, I'm pretty good at negotiating. Also, he raises the valid point. Also, if I go out and genuflect a lot, then you don't have to do it. That's literally my job, is to go out and do it so that my boss doesn't have to. When he walks out there, the Pike refers to him as a tailhead. This was a racist thing that would be said against Twi'leks and Legends, but I think it's the first mention of it in canon.
But he plays it off well. He's like, oh, thank you for noticing, or something along those lines.
My next note is I do love the reaction that he does in universe, because it's such an interesting response to this, is to say, oh, haha, I love it every time somebody calls me one of those.
Right. Yeah, it's like he is kind of showing his degree is worth something, because, you know, what should make him mad as an insult to him, I guess, makes him go like, he can turn it around very quickly and be like, ha ha ha, you're such a funny guy. Like, by the way.
No, like, you're right. And I hadn't even thought about that it is probably part of his civic council negotiations is not rising to bait.
Right.
He mentions the Obsidian Cliffs of Obadiah. We do see the terrain of Obadiah in Clone Wars Season 7. And then fucking Din and Boba show up.
Right.
And it is badass as hell. Like, they're just out there back-to-back fighting, fucking shooting rockets and everything. Fucking pew, pew, pew. Like, ugh.
I thought this is where we were going to get our back-to-back flamethrower thing. Because when they were back-to-back, at one point, I was like, Charles, here it comes. It's coming. I know it's coming. And then it didn't happen.
But later, but not yet.
Yeah, not in that way. But I thought it was going to happen, back-to-back flamethrowers. And I knew you were going to be so fucking pissed, because once I saw them touch backs, I was like, it's going to happen. And he's going to be pissed.
It's coming. Freetown has shown up.
Freetown comes.
I know that a lot of you thought that I was going to bring up Black Chrysanthemum here. But actually, we're talking about Freetown.
So I didn't know that this, like what I said earlier, this is the part where the Tuscans should have shown up with the people of Freetown. And
I agree. Wholeheartedly.
This is that part right here.
Wholeheartedly,
There's nothing wrong with the people of Freetown. They have no stake in the game other than their favorite
their marshal is dead.
Their fucking local sheriff just got shot.
The local sheriff just got shot. It's like, I
don't know if that's like enough motivation, but sure.
Which, oh no, Cobb Vanth is dead.
Yeah, I didn't like how they snuck in that little line right there to like make sure we knew for a fact, like, he's been gunned down. Like, really?
They gunned him down in cold blood. Is like, wow, that is sad. Cobb Vanth really is dead. Take a moment to mourn, and then continue the episode.
But let's take this in the context of like not knowing what we know later on.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything. This is definitely dead.
This is very misleading for him to tell that to Mando, like, and not explain it. Like, he's like, yeah, they shot him in cold blood, and then just continues to go about his day, like, and not clarifying anything else.
Well, it's important to note that Mando just says, I'm sorry about the marshal. He doesn't explicitly say, I'm sorry they killed the marshal.
Right.
So, yes, it would make sense that the guy would just assume. Tonti, by the way, is the Weequay's name.
Well, he's a jerk because he's not telling Mando, who is clearly in a relationship with Cobb Vanth, that his boyfriend is dead.
Your boyfriend's fine. Would have been, or your boyfriend's alive would have been nice, but Chrysanthemum, my king, just fucking barrels in with Pykes on him, hurls one of them off of him, swings around with his cannon and just blasts the guy. And I'm like, sir.
So this scene proves why that him being covered up by a bunch of Trandoshans didn't kill him, because this dude gets, I wish I should have counted it. He literally gets shot, like multiple times in this scene. This
is comics Black Chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
When I talked about being slightly disappointed by the fight in episode 3, because I was like, oh, I've seen comics Chrysanthemum and he's done way more badass stuff. This is what I have been talking about. This is Black Chrysanthemum actually fighting for real. And one thing I do like is that he's not invincible. He takes these hits, and if you've read the comics and stuff, you know that like his skeleton is partially made of metal and he's got all these augmentations to help him survive longer, but like he's limping for a good portion of it.
He's literally dragging his foot at one point. Yeah.
When he's crashing into walls and things, like it slows him down. I think they walked a wonderful line with Chrysanthemum to where he's not invincible, but he's also like, he's not beaten to a complete pulp. Like he's still able to move around. Speaking of him being beaten to a complete pulp, I do love the little sequence with him and Boba. I do love that, because neither of these characters throughout their entire lives has ever expressed any degree of giving a shit about other people. And for them to have this moment where they very clearly have come to respect each other over the course of the show, I really liked. I liked that moment.
Well, and it's a good duality with earlier where, Cad Bane shows up and Boba's like, hey, you want to join the team? And, you're a little late to the party, because he's so willing to let anybody help him. And then Cad Bane's like, no, I've already got a job. And with Chrysanthemum, on the other hand, they were quote unquote enemies at first, but now he's helping him out and they actually kind of care about each other / respect each other, at least. So it's just a nice switch.
And that's an underlying theme of the show, that you are stronger when you have a tribe around you. That's the lesson that Boba takes from the Tuscans. That's the lesson that he starts applying and where he starts becoming successful. Remember, the Pykes are in this completely out of like profit. And the people who are joined up with them don't really care about them at all. They're just allies of convenience, which is why it falls apart so quickly at the end. But Boba has taken pains to surround himself with people that know that Boba gives a shit about them. And that makes it so that we're in these situations that are unwinnable situations. Those bonds help them keep going in a way that somebody who doesn't have them wouldn't.
Just as the group thinks they have the upper hand, a pair of shielded battle droids show up and begin to overwhelm them. Boba and Mando take on the droids. Mando distracts them, while Boba heads out for reinforcements.
We'll talk about what the droids are here in the next sequence, I believe. But what's important as a fun fact to know is that they are from a reference book, which in turn was drawing from unused concept art for Attack of the Clones. So they basically are derived long way round from Attack of the Clones concept art, which is kind of neat. The shields are there, and you know what's fucking useless against the shields? You know what's not helpful at all? It's my fucking enemy, my nemesis, the bane of my existence.
The Cad Bane of your existence?
The Cad Bane of my existence. The fucking flamethrower shows up.
I did say flamethrower fail number 1 right here.
Oh, it's number 1, because there's more than one.
There's more.
There's more than actually. This may be the only time we'll.
I was gonna say.
We'll proceed.
I didn't really write down every time, but
I have noted every instance of my hated enemy in this. It is down in my notes. Every time that motherfucker showed up on the screen, I added a mark to my tally and took another shot of tequila, which, because I was doing this at work in my office, was a very awkward experience for everyone around me. That was a joke. I just made a mental note to take a shot of tequila later. No, the flamethrower is there and useless against the shield, obviously. Thank you, Den, for trying that. That was not helpful. I love the concept that Den, as I've written down in my notes, is stupid smart. So Den in this episode is like, yeah, our laser bolts aren't going to be able to pierce that shield, and our kinetic weapons aren't going to have the velocity to get through. And then last episode, he's like, is that a bench? Somebody, I can't remember who, pointed out that Den is a himbo.
Yeah.
And part of that is he's very smart in his one specific area, which is killing things and bounty hunting. And everything outside of that, he is a fucking dumbass.
Well, I also don't like how what Din does too sometimes is like he likes to try the thing, but then immediately after the thing fails, he's like, let me just try it one more time. Like with the fucking Darksaber, he like hits the energy shield with the Darksaber, and then he's like, huh, that didn't work. Let me try it again. Like, what? Like, what are you doing?
Den, bless him, is one of the smarter characters in the Star Wars universe, while simultaneously easily being one of the stupidest. I want to address something to the Star Wars fan base. Listen up. Jordan Bolger's little fucking spin that he does around in the scene with him and Chrysanthemum and Sophie Thatcher. You know what I'm talking about, Bradley?
Like he like kind of does like this fancy like
when he does
spin
the fancy
move.
spin.
Yeah.
That is camp. You goddamn Philistines. That shit was hilarious. Is it stupid? Yes, but this is Star Wars. The over-exaggerated, ridiculous motions are part of the charm. That spin was hilariously stupid. And like camp, the way it works to my understanding is camp is something that's intended, it has to be intended to be serious, but is funny, which this spin was to me. Like, clearly it was supposed to be badass. It's not, it's stupid, but it's still amazing. That was notes on a spin. Dresh references growing up a quote unquote womp hop, which I guess is just the Tatooine way of saying a stone's throw. Did like that when they're taking cover, and this is where we learn that Tanti is the Weequay's name. We have an actual name for this person, which perfect reunion.
Another reason why she is so good in this episode is this whole sequence.
Ellie literally turns up and in the middle of the battle is like, hey Mando, I brought your kid.
I got you a surprise.
I got you a surprise. And she doesn't like immediately tell him the second that they discover that it's a battle. She waits a few more minutes or a few more seconds
into the high-speed chase. She's like, by
the way, your kid is here. No, the little moment where Grogu like hops up and Din realizes he's wearing the shirt, and it's the analytical part of my brain is going, this should have been in Mando season 3. Why is this in Book of Boba? But my analytical brain can go fuck itself with the biggest fucking thing it can get its hands on, because I don't give a shit about my analytical brain in that moment.
Yeah.
Din reunited with his son.
It's very cute.
He's being distracted by the giant Scorpionic droid chasing them, which, by the way, that's what these things are called. Oh. And I find it really funny that Peli is the one that knows what they're called.
Well, of course she does. She's a droid expert, and a language expert, and an alien expert, and a everything expert.
Look, there's not a lot to do running a shitty garage on Tatooine.
Right.
All right. She's got a lot of time to spend on Duolingo. Plus, this woman will bang anything in the galaxy, which icon, legend, we have no choice but to stand. Obviously, she wants to know how to hit on people in multiple species languages.
Chase
is peak Star Wars.
it's very like, I feel like this is what the quote unquote you guys like to joke, the slow speed chase from earlier in the season or whatever. Like this is the high speed chase like that we actually wanted.
Yes, this is it. Like this is just beautiful.
Yeah.
Like this brief chase, or it's funny because she pulls a hammer out of nowhere and hits the droid with it. She pulls a gun out of nowhere. Like I didn't see it in the car in the first few shots, and she just has it. I'm like, this is amazing. I loved this whole thing.
The whole sequence, everything. Up next, the taxi cart crashes suddenly, throwing everyone from the cab. Just before the droid gets to them, we hear a faint roar. Boba Fett arrives riding his Rancor, who must not be named apparently, who takes on the droid. While distracted, Mando breaks through the shield and stabs the droid with the darksaber. He is thrown back, and the droid is about to kill him, but not before Grogu saves the day by telekinesis ex machina. The Rancor comes back and finishes the job.
The motherfucking Rancor.
Okay, so this is probably the best sequence in the whole thing, is just all the Rancor stuff is pretty fucking sweet.
I want to blow by blow go down the Rancor fights and explain why they're awesome, but I cannot.
Right.
You just have to sit there and watch it yeah. And be 10 years old and watch Boba Fett riding a fucking Rancor.
Yeah.
Around
it's so good.
It's so good. When Boba is like, do it.
Yeah.
And it rips the droid apart. I was like, oh, this is perfection. I loved that Pelimoto, like when she crashed and hit the thing, spat out a tooth. And for the rest of the sequence, she's missing one of her teeth.
She's so funny.
I do
it's
find
like,
that
it's funny without being like dumb, but like it's like that's just her character. Like a normal character would have gotten hurt, right? And then wouldn't have made a big deal about it or whatever. They just would have been like, oh, I'm hurt. Like she just has to get hurt in a funny way, like to where she's just like, oh, gotta spit my tooth out. Right?
Oh my goodness. I love that there's one point where the Rancor is like throwing the Pykes around and we hear a Wilhelm scream.
Wilhelm scream, yep, from one of the Pykes.
We do hear a Wilhelm scream. That was excellent.
I caught that.
We will return to Grogu and his force powers in a moment because there's another scene that happens later on that I want to really dive into how Grogu is using his force powers in this episode. Rather, I want to shift our focus to what is happening while the Rancor is rampaging and talk about Drash and the one lady that she goes up onto the rooftop with, and they're sniping down while Boba Fett's firing. So they're going to become like a couple, right?
I mean, officially, no.
But like they're a couple, right?
On fanfic.com// lesbian porn, like.
And this is how you know that Bradley has never ever written fan fiction in his life, because he doesn't know the actual names. I am sure there is fan fiction about these two already, and I am here for it, because I was definitely getting like, oh, it's a star-crossed lovers thing. Yeah. It's the city girl, right? And the country girl.
Well, that's what I mentioned earlier. Was like, she's like, we came to save your asses, basically, and then she's like, no, you didn't. You guys are just country people.
Yeah, they've got the long-standing rivalry. They listen to me, Lucasfilm. I would say I'm available, but I don't necessarily would want to be the one to tell this story. There are plenty of queer women that you can hire. I know several of them. I can provide you a list. Call me. I will give you their names and contact information. Let them write this lovely gay lesbian romance story that clearly is happening here. Ugh. But they won't, because they're fucking cowards.
Cowards. While the Maws are taking on the other droid, the Rancor shows up to help take this one down too. Boba is thrown from the Rancor when Cad Bane uses a flamethrower to scare him. The Rancor runs away so we can get our showdown. Boba uses his gaffy stick to take Cad Bane out.
Oh, so the flamethrower works when Cad Bane uses it. Okay.
I love how that is a thing in this whole entire episode, other than Mando using it for a little bit at one point on the Rancor as well. He's the only one who successfully uses the flamethrower in a nice way.
Mando uses it successfully one time later on.
Right.
Cad Bane uses it successfully twice.
Yeah.
And he uses it a third time, but we'll get to that in a second. It's further down in my notes. Yeah, the flamethrower, actually, no, he uses it 3 times. Only the first time is useful. What's interesting about the conversation between Boba and Cad Bane, you don't really need to know the history between the two of them to understand the conversation has weight. Like, the conversation itself does a good job of communicating that they knew each other when Boba was very young, and Cad Bane kind of mentored him. It's not explicitly spelled out, and I felt like it should be. This is one thing I was talking about at the top of the episode, where I was like, I feel like they should have introduced him a lot sooner than episode 6, or at least mentioned him.
Yeah.
So that we knew who he was, and this carried some weight. As it stands, it only carries weight if you know about an unreleased arc from the Clone Wars.
And also that he mentions, like, he's like, your father's blood runs through your veins. Like, and it's like, well, like,
yeah, I thought that was interesting that he mentioned Jango in the context of being like a ruthless killer.
Right. And also, it kind of also implies that he knew Jango too.
Well, he did. He did. In the Clone Wars episode where Boba, oh no, it wasn't Hondo. I'm confusing him with Hondo.
Oh.
Well, I just mean, like, he knew Jango.
Outside of the visual media, like, if you only, let's just say you haven't even seen any of the animated shows, you don't know that Cad Bane knows Jango.
This will be the thing, like, Charles didn't research.
So I did think it was kind of cheap. But again, yeah, it's something they should have mentioned earlier on, that they, like, Cad Bane was his mentor and that they did this stuff. I get that they were trying to be secretive and, like, not show Cad Bane until the finale and stuff, but it's like, come on, guys. Like, are we past this point of keeping secrets?
Can we not do this? Can you just tell us what's in the show, please? Flamethrower, he tries to use it again in his fight with Jango. Does not help really all that much. Did I just say Jango instead of Boba?
You did.
Okay. I mean, technically, if you want to nitpick the point,
technologically,
if Boba like dodges out of the way of it, they scuffle. I thought it was very nice because Cad Bane was trying to be like, oh, you know, you've grown weak, you rely on other people, yada yada yada. Once again, Star Wars Explained, Alex Damon pointed this out in his review. He said it was, what does Boba Fett kill Cad Bane with? It's the gaffy stick.
Yeah.
It's the symbol of his relationship with his community.
Yeah.
With his found family is what he actually uses to kill Cad Bane. And that is a neat touch. He kills Cad Bane with it because the flamethrower that Cad Bane tries to use on him is fucking useless.
I also want to mention too, like, when he's talking to Boba, I thought he was going to name drop Omega, like, randomly, because he's going all into his past. And he was like, well, your father this, and when you were a kid that. Like, I swore, like, him and Fennec both have met Omega, so I don't understand why neither one of them has brought up Omega yet. It doesn't make any sense.
Ugh.
So clearly he fails in whatever season 2 of Bad Batch, because he never mentions Omega again, because
I don't know if we'll see Cad Bane in the Bad Batch again. I find it an interesting point that Cad Bane keeps being like, oh, you're just a killer, you're just a killer, you're just a killer. Like, being honorable and being willing to straight up murder people who are trying to murder you are mutually exclusive things. It's like, Cad Bane, my dude, he can still be honorable and stab you to death when you have shot at him repeatedly.
Well, that's true, but I also think I hate when shows do this too, because I did actually kind of find this disturbing, was that he goes, "You're a killer. You're nothing but a killer. You always be a killer, just like your father." Like basically is what he said. And then Boba proves him right by being a killer and killing him. Like technically, you would think that the arc that Boba has is that he wouldn't kill Cad Bane, right? He would be like, no, 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 I just defeated you. I'm a good guy now. I don't kill people technically. Like that should be the arc.
Yeah, I think it shows the direction they've gone with Boba Fett's character, in that we see a few times that he's honorable now, but he is perfectly willing to waste people who attack him.
Yeah.
And the deal is you have to have attacked him first. But by this point, he's not going to give Cad Bane a second chance. Yeah. He knows what's going to happen. So he just stabs him, which, I mean, fair.
Okay, so let's talk about the stabbing.
Yes, because the stabbing with the gaffy stick.
The stabbing, he is stabbed. He's lying there. They do a really cute, slow zoom out on his body. And then his little transponder thing is still beeping, which I thought was interesting.
So once again, Star Wars Explained, Alex Damon. Thank you for providing me all of the material for this episode, by the way, Alex. Pointed out that he turned on the audio descriptor for the episode to see if it would give any clues to like what was important in the scene.
Yeah.
And the audio descriptor of the episode does actually mention, it's sure to mention the blinking red light.
So in my headcanon now, what that means is that is some kind of either a warning or signal or something to someone, aka Todo, his little robot, to come get him so that he can be saved. Because if this man is 71 years old and is still kicking around the galaxy, and I'm sure he's got into some hairy situations, maybe not as much as being stabbed in the literal heart or wherever he gets stabbed. But I mean,
where are the Duros' hearts anyway? Like, what got punctured there?
Yeah, maybe it was just a lung or something. We don't know. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe it's not necessarily a fatal wound, and he's just kind of like laying there to hopefully, maybe he just blacked out or something, and then Todo comes and saves him, fixes him up, and then he comes back for season 2 for revenge.
I think that one theory that was brought up, which I sort of think is accurate, is that the way that they're doing it is, if this is his death, it's a perfectly acceptable way for him to go out.
Right.
If they decide to bring him back, the red light is sort of a crack in the door they've left open.
Right. Just in case. Yeah.
Just in case.
Right.
Just in
Absolutely.
case.
If it works, we'll bring him back. If not, then he's just dead forever. It's fine.
Yes. So I would prefer they didn't bring him back. I kind of like this to be the way he goes out. We'll see at Star Wars. Somehow people return.
I don't know. Yeah, I kind of feel like, I mean, this is the one situation where we do see the body. So like, my rule is always, if you don't see the body, then they're just alive and it's fine. But technically we see his body. So I can't be like, well, I almost feel like this should have been the end credit scene, was somebody getting his body and pulling it away. And then like,
I had an interesting thought, because you had, I believe, previously theorized that Cad Bane was the one who approached, either you or me had theorized that Cad Bane had approached Fennec in the desert, and that's Cad Bane in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
I think it would be interesting if the same thing happened to Cad Bane that happened to Fennec, like we saw somebody.
100%.
Now, we do have a post-credit scene of somebody coming back from quote-unquote near death and having a major change, but we'll get to that, and it's not Cad Bane.
Right.
But I do think it would have been interesting if they had done something similar with somebody walking up on Cad Bane's body.
It would have been a cool parallel if you did the same thing, right? So you would have had him lying there, and then you had some random person, like, now we really don't know who it is, popping up to save Cad Bane. Like, it would have been interesting to kind of do that parallel.
On the one hand, it would be cool. On the other hand, now that I think about it, I'm like, I do kind of like how open-ended they left it.
Yeah.
To where I really do like that if this is the ending, this is the ending.
Okay, here's my new parallel ending. Okay. So we see Cad Bane there lying. His transponder is still making a little beep. We see the little feet of Toto walk up, and he kind of like checks to make sure, and he looks up at somebody, and he's like, I don't think he's breathing or something like that. Da, 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 da. And he's like, we need to get him back to the med pod or whatever. And then the other person walks up, and you see their feet, and they start to go down to like pick him up. We don't see who they are, and they walk away. That person is one of the members of the Bad Batch for no reason.
Oh my
whatsoever. God. For no reason whatsoever.
I can't wait for us to get Bad Batch season 2, so you will shut up with these theories. Not everything is from Bad Batch is going to show up.
I know. All right, let's move on. After the showdown, the Rancor is still on the loose, destroying the city. The Rancor gives us a King Kong moment, and we get a quick section of Mando riding the Rancor. Just before he's eaten, Mando flamethrowers the inside of Baby Rancor's mouth, and just before he's about to die again, Grogu calms him down and they take a nap together.
Yeah, it's gone full fucking King Kong. Like,
it's almost the same shot.
It's yeah, like he goes for the tallest building, he climbs up it.
I'm surprised he didn't grab Grogu and did that. Like, how funny would that have been if he had been he like randomly grabs Grogu and then starts climbing a building, and then he's just like, it would have been perfect.
Oh my goodness. Well, he almost kind of holds Mando in that similar way to the way Kong holds I cannot remember for the life of me the character's name. I know one of the versions was played by Jessica Lange.
Yeah, a woman.
I cannot remember the character's name. The woman that he holds in the film. Yeah, full on King Kong, and I loved it. I love that Mando gives Grogu the little ball, and says, "Hold on to this." It's like, oh, he kept the ball. He kept his little ball from the Razor Crest that we saw him pluck out of the wreckage in Mando season 2. The flamethrower is here.
Like flamethrower?
I will give it to the flamethrower for this time. The flamethrower was useful to stop the Rancor from eating him in this instance by frightening the Rancor away.
Gotcha.
Did not appear to hurt the Rancor at all, but I don't think Den was trying to do that.
No, I think he was just trying to stop him from doing what he was doing. Because earlier in the scene, he does say, like, stop shooting him. He's like, hey, that's what's making him mad. Like, don't do that. You're only making him more angry, making him more crazy. Like, so stop shooting at him. Just let him, like, kind of do his own thing.
It is interesting. One of the complaints that I had about episode 6 was I was like, why are we spending so much time on Grogu? Why is this taking up the vast majority of the episode? And I realize now that part of the reason for that was this sequence. That Boba was going to be separated from the Rancor. The Rancor was going to go on a rampage. Somebody had to calm it down. If it wasn't Danny Trejo, it had to be someone using the Force, and that someone had to be Grogu. So it was important that we saw in his episode with Luke that he does receive a basic level of training. Remember I said we would bring up the Force thing again? Mm-hmm. Previously, Grogu kind of lashed out with the Force. He didn't really have a lot of control over it. Now we're seeing that thanks to his training with Luke, he's not a Jedi Master. He's not even at the level of a Padawan, really. But he's got some level of control over his own abilities. Mm-hmm. He knows what he can do with them, and he knows how to tap into them, which we see him use it to very specifically target part of the droid. He didn't stop the whole droid. He just stops one leg.
Right.
We see him calm down the Rancor by connecting through the Force, which I think is also an interesting thing in terms of, how they're both predators. So maybe that's how they relate to each other, because they're both constantly eating things that are smaller than them. But that, I think, was the importance of the Grogu steps. We needed to see him reach a point where he could do this.
Right.
Also, it's adorable.
I was going to say, if we don't get, like, all kinds of figures of
like Funko
sleeping
Pop.
Rancor.
Yeah, like Baby Yoda with sleeping Rancor.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, definitely something they could do.
I noticed in this sequence that Mando has knee rockets. I never noticed that he had those before. But he also has knee rockets. My final note on this sequence is no, Pelly, you cannot barbecue the Rancor. This is her reaction to everything big. That is, can I eat it? No, Pelly, you cannot eat it.
I did want, we did kind of skip over it, but Pelly saves the major dome.
Oh yeah.
I didn't want to forget her because that scene is really fucking funny, and she's like, "Get over here, pretty," whatever she says. Like,
oh yeah,
nice head tails or something like that. What did she say?
She's like, "Nice head tails. Take cover behind me, pretty boy," or something like that. And I'm like,
I cannot. She just wants to fuck everything. Like,
she is an icon. She is a legend. She is incredible, and we have no choice but to stand.
We cut to the head of the Pike Syndicate, who has the rest of the crime bosses in a tizzy as they are mad that they are losing this war. One by one, each of the leaders is assassinated, with the mayor's assassination being particularly gruesome, and Fennec pops up behind the Pike leader, taking him out.
I'm sorry, you mean Master Assassin Fennec fucking Shand.
She really does prove why she is a Master Assassin.
Did we forget that that's her title?
That's true. I think we did.
Like, she is a Master Assassin.
She really is.
She takes this whole group out in like 0.2 seconds. The fucking mayor, when she like hangs him.
So I noted that, like, do those things even have a neck? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty much just their body and then their face kind of comes off their body. Like, it's like such a weird like design. How does she hang this dude? Like,
it does kind of have a neck. Like, it comes down into his.
I know, it's just funny how he's just oddly shaped. Like, how she was able to do that? Like,
I could describe to you in detail what I think is happening above the camera shot, but I really don't want to do this on this podcast.
Right.
I really don't. All we have to know is it's suitably horrifying.
Yes.
This is the Fennec Shand solution to problems. I do think this scene really highlights the main difference between the Pykes and Boba, because it shows finally and definitively that they were nothing more than an alliance of convenience.
Yeah.
They were only together for the purpose of exploiting Mos Espa, and when that became too difficult, the Pykes were going to abandon them because the Pykes never cared about the crime bosses.
Right, they were like, this is too much work. We can make money elsewhere. Yeah.
Tatooine. You only promised us Tatooine because you said Tatooine would be easy. Half of my people got eaten by a Rancor.
Right.
Like, what do you want us to do here?
Right.
Yeah, this scene was horrifying. This scene was brutal. This scene was intense. I loved every second of it. It was very cathartic.
I did like it. And it was a fitting, like, it's nice that Fennec got to do something in this episode. Albeit it was a very quick scene, but I guess we could argue that she makes quick work. So
yeah, Fennec Shand doesn't mess around.
In the last couple sequences, the fighting has ended and Mos Espa begins repairs from the damage. The people all seem to regard Boba for removing crime from the city. Boba and Fennec decide they might not be suited for this life, and Mando and Grogu speed off into season 3.
I do love the sequence when Boba's like, oh, maybe we aren't suited for this. And Fennec raises the excellent point of, well, if we're not going to do it, then who's going to do it?
So this is where I have two problems with the episode. One is, you all just spent the whole fucking show trying to be the leaders of this goddamn city. And now you're just like, I don't know if I really want to do it.
Yeah, it reads to me like Boba has settled, like he's actually in the role that he's wanted to be in the whole time. And he's like, oh man, I don't know if I can like adjust to this.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know if I like those.
And Fennec is like, well, it's not, I don't know if I like this, because he very clearly likes it.
Well, yeah. He's just like, it's different.
He's like, it's different, and I don't know if I could do it. And Fennec is like, well, we're kind of the people that are here.
Yeah.
So, but Finnick has fortunately come around. You know, at the very beginning, she was like, you need to rule through fear. And now she's like, actually, I'm pretty chill with being respected and loved.
I don't know. I felt like this final scene left a bad taste in my mouth for the whole show, because I felt like it resolved nothing and we didn't get any kind of like end game on what these characters are going to be doing for the foreseeable future, because they said that.
I think the beat where they're all together, which is a very nice beat to end on. Like, I really do like that beat where they stand there and they're
messing around with Chrysanthemum and stuff. But
that was great. Like, they've come together, but we aren't allowed any time to spend time with them now that they've coalesced into a unit. Yeah. The whole show has been about Boba putting his family together. I would have preferred one more scene, maybe of them in the palace, to contrast the opening scene from the show, where the palace was empty. I would have preferred one more scene where we see those same rooms, but they have the mods in them. They have Chrysanthemum in them.
Well, I also feel like this would have been a perfect opportunity to show us that Max Rebo is alive and well, because he would have been in the palace performing for them or something. Exactly. Like, that's what they needed. That's why I'm saying, like, I just left a weird taste in my mouth because we didn't get that scene.
I don't know if it's possible that COVID delays may have changed the shooting around, that might have been the original intention. I mean, I do like that they ended a shot of the whole group together, because you look at them, and also the rat catcher, who is there for some reason.
For no reason. It makes no sense why he's there.
For no reason, the rat catcher is there. You look at them and you're like, oh, neat. That's a fun cast. Can't wait to watch that show.
Yeah, and what I don't like too is that they don't end on this scene. The next scene is of Grogu and Mando, and they're the quote unquote final scene. I mean, even though we get a cutscene later on, but it's still like, this is technically the final scene, is Grogu and Mando going off into season 3.
Again, my analytical brain does not like it for the same reasons. I get what the intention is they want to transition us from the Book of Boba Fett back into the Mandalorian with Grogu and Den off on a new adventure. The adventure continues. Yes, we get to see Grogu in the Naboo Starfighter, which is adorable. But for the same reason, it didn't really land for me. I feel like they should have ended with Boba.
Right.
That the scenes almost should have been reversed. Even that would have been a little bit better.
Slightly better, yeah.
Did you notice the end credits have lyrics now?
I didn't notice that. I was too focused on the fact that I felt like there was going to be an end credit scene, so I was like, okay, we gotta wait for the end credit scene. I wasn't paying attention to the lyrics.
I won't tell you what the lyrics are, but the end credits have lyrics now.
Interesting.
I did also like that they pulled a couple of relevant pieces of concept art to put alongside some of the major players. It felt very the end credits of Return of the King for me. Not as earned as the end credits of Return of the King are, but it was neat that they had Ming-Na Wen's name next to a picture of Ming-Na Wen.
I see what
they had Pedro Pascal on Pedro Pascal. They didn't do it for everybody, but it generally lined up, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
The post-credit scene sure is there, and I have a major gripe with this scene.
I have thoughts.
I have a major gripe with this scene. A giant problem with this. And I need to just lay it out.
Okay.
There is a massive gaping plot hole in this scene. And it's a real plot hole this time.
Okay.
So Boba Fett, when we see him in the back to tank, is never wearing a shirt.
Oh.
And when we see Cobb Vanth in the back to tank, listen to me, this is important. When we see Cobb Vanth in the back to tank, he is wearing a shirt. And I want to know why is Timothy Oliphant not shirtless in this scene?
Because cowards.
Please explain, Robert, because you directed this episode. Please explain, Robert, where my shirtless Timothy Oliphant is.
Yeah, I'm looking at the screenshot now. First of all, he's in a turtleneck.
Yeah, what's going on there, Robert?
Not even okay. So let's ignore the fact that he's wearing a shirt. He's So the problem is that he's not naked in this tank. So that's the main problem. He's not shirtless. He's not naked. Not only is he not naked, he's wearing a full turtleneck covering his whole entire body except for his head.
That is my issue with this sequence is Cobb Vanth is wearing a shirt. And that is a major lore error. I don't care if it's a jumpsuit or whatever. Please correct for future releases this grievous error.
Let's talk about what this scene means. So two things. One is we see the modifier, and that obviously means like, okay, he's going to quote unquote save him by adding modifications to him. Hopefully they're not intense enough to like really change him. Like he didn't have his hand cut off, so he's not gonna have like a mechanical arm or something like that. He's not gonna. Hopefully it's like Fennec, where it's like he just has a intestinal.
He has wires in his shoulders now,
right, or something, yeah. Or wherever he was shot, there's going to be some kind of like plate or something, right? So not only does he going to have these modifications, is he going to be like the Inspector Gadget of Star Wars now? Like he's going to be like all robot on the inside, and it's going to be like this weird ass like Inspector Gadget show.
That's what I'm kind of wondering. I'm watching the scene. I'm like, where are they going with this?
Yeah, what are they trying to do?
Is this going to be a plot point in Mando season 3? Is this going to be a plot point in another Boba Fett show? Like, are they going to resurrect Rangers of the New Republic and give it to Cobb Vanth instead, which I would not be mad about?
Which I think is a better choice. Now that I think about it, like that is the show that you need to do. If you're going to do it, if you want to still do this Rangers show, like he's the one to lead the show. I think it would work.
What does it mean?
I know, it's such a strange end credit scene. I mean, my only thought is that the COVID delays did kind of change everything, and then this is like a nice like little teaser, like ha ha ha, he's alive, but like, is it really necessary that we know that? Like, we could have just said Cobb Vanth.
Actually, no, it is extremely necessary that we are aware that Cobb Vanth is still alive.
You don't think they could just played it off for a whole year and then we would have found out in season 3 of Mando that he's alive?
I mean, like, they could have, but I am glad that we do know that Cobb Vanth is at least alive. Now, the question is, what is going to happen? Because it almost feels like they're setting him up to be a more major character going forward.
It's important, but you know what I felt like would have been a better end credit scene for this show? Would have been 2 things. One would have been the Tuscan Warrior, something with the Tuscan Warrior to show that she's still alive, etc. Right? Like something along those lines where like then maybe they'll come back and there's another plot point for season 2. That could have been one thing. My second thing is something having to do with the twins. I think they should have shown the twins back on Nal Hutta or whatever, and been like, oh, something's going on in Tatooine. And they're like, maybe we should reassess going back to Tatooine. And then they bring the rest of the Hutts there. You know what I mean? That would set up like a season 2 kind of situation.
Right. I really, truly am wondering what direction they're going with this. Yeah. Because I also know that they're making it up as they go along.
Yeah, it's not like you can make Cobb Vanth like a villain or something. You know what I mean? Like there's no, like, it doesn't work. Like, so I don't know how they're going to do it.
Yeah, this is definitely much to ponder about this scene. I will be focusing my mental energy on why is Cobb Vanth wearing a shirt and how do we get it off of him? All right, Bradley, give us our directed by and written by.
Yes, well, you kind of already alluded to this. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, written by Jon Favreau.
Naturally. Yes, naturally. No,
I'm
I thought
shocked.
this was probably Robert Rodriguez's best episode out of all of them. Like this is the one where he was clearly saving all of his energy for. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a problem really with the direction of this episode. Jon Favreau and Noah Clore. I'm not letting Noah Clore off the hook as the staff writer for this show, but primarily Jon Favreau. I think I agree with E.K. Johnston, who said that they needed to hire writers. It didn't need to just be Jon Favreau, because a lot of the issues with the show overall, and we'll talk about it in our recap episode, a lot of the issues could have been hammered out with a few other writers in the writer's room.
And that's what people don't understand about TV shows is that it's never one person. You know what I mean?
No,
And
it's never one
unfortunately,
person.
in this situation, though, it feels like it was one person. So,
Yeah, and it feels
yeah,
like it was one person, and it feels like the errors. I won't say errors.
right. The
The
choices.
the choices that are made that were not great ring out more glaringly because it is one singular voice.
Right.
Like we look at the example of the original trilogy versus the prequel trilogy. The original trilogy, Lucas had people around him that were contributing,
Yeah.
especially with Empire. Lee Brackett, Lawrence Kasdan both did a lot of work in contributing to making Empire what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The prequel trilogy, where George basically wrote whatever he wanted, definitely the most George, but also the flaws in George Lucas's writing were way more apparent in the prequel trilogy because he didn't have other people around him to help him refine it. And I feel like this is the same way. Like, I'm not sure how much impact Noah Clore actually had on the scripts, whereas he was just writing things that John told him to write, or whether or not there was any discussion. But I feel like a lot of the issues we have with this episode, and we'll get into the series overall, could have been alleviated if they'd run Jon Favreau's ideas and stories through a few other voices.
Yeah, I almost feel like they needed to have like, so if John has like the first draft, then he would have written it, he would have passed it along to, you know, the second team, and the second team would have done a pass at the, you know, the show, and then the third team or whatever, there's just the group essentially would have like been like, okay, how can we make this better? How can we do this? Then they would have sent it back to John, who would have been like, oh yeah, that would have been a smarter idea. Oh yeah, that makes more sense. And then finalize it.
Make it a collaborative process.
Exactly.
It'll be better for it. Like 100%. And this episode really highlighted a lot of the issues where it's like you needed to run it through a few more passes with a few more people.
Absolutely.
Just to get eyes on it. Which is not to say that I think Jon Favreau is a bad writer. I think that Jon Favreau is a pretty good writer. The problem is the show just needed more writers, and this episode in particular really highlighted that fact. All right, Bradley, do you want to give us your final thoughts first?
Yeah, so my final thoughts are, I think overall great episode. It tied up certain plot lines that needed to be tied up, and then it left a lot of other things to open that didn't need to be opened, and then also introduced things that I wasn't expecting, like a Peli Moto Major Domo romance that I didn't know we needed, but there you go. Overall, I thought it was great. I did think that overall, though, it did have Mando in it, but not as much as the last two episodes, to the point where it was overwhelming for me. I felt like he was in it just enough to support, and Grogu was in it just enough to support and slightly take over, but not too much. I think it was okay, but it was just the right amount of Mando this time, not too much. And I love the Rancor, more Rancor. Hopefully we get more Rancors in Star Wars.
You just want Night Sisters.
I absolutely want to see a bunch of ladies riding Rancors.
Yes. My final thoughts are, I always judge Star Wars by the metric of, I ask myself, is it fun? First and foremost, primarily, is it fun beyond anything else? And in that, this episode definitely succeeded. And I think that's a large part of why I felt like the landing was stuck in terms of the overall series, that we had some gripes with a lot of the earlier episodes, but the show did leave me on a good note. And I think a lot of it is because this episode is fun. It's got character moments. It's got character beats. It's got some great action. It's got some really inventive action for Star Wars. So I enjoyed it overall. I think in terms of a lot of the issues with it that I have with it are going to be issues that relate to the entire series as a whole, which we will get to when we do the recap episode. So overall, I liked it. I thought it was a very fun finale. And let's take a break from this time period for a while and do something else. Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's one of my, I guess I didn't mention that in my final thoughts, and we'll probably talk about it more in the recap. But yeah, I think I'm kind of done with this era, like for a while. I want to because I feel like this is such a hard era to do, is the in-between time between the new era, the Disney era, I'll call it, and the classic trilogy. Like, I feel like it's such a tough thing to live up to because you're dealing with old stuff and you're trying to fit in new stuff. It's like, just give us the new stuff for a little bit. Like, it's fine. Like, we don't need to have an Easter egg every 5 seconds. Like, I want you guys to breathe and just write a story.
Yes, let's check here and see what the next show is, just to make sure it's not going to be full of stuff we already know.
Right.
Let me Google here real fast which show is coming up. Hopefully with a new character.
Right. Brand new character.
Some new locations.
Takes place after Rise of Skywalker.
So I'm just pulling up here real fast.
Oh no.
Oh, Bradley, I've got some bad news for you about the show debuting on May 25th.
Oh no.
I have some bad news about what the tone of that show is going to be and how many characters we've seen before.
On that note,
yes. Next week, we are going to do our whole season recap of the Book of Boba Fett season or series. They're a little vague at present. And then after that, we are going to take a week off. And then we will be back with something special for the gap in the middle. The gap that we once again have to fill. Star Wars podcasting is fun, guys.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze.
Did we forget something? Email us at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at goldsquadgaze. And you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post this podcast as well as exclusive video content.
Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze.
I started thinking about Ewan McGregor with salt and pepper hair, like just a little bit of attractive gray in his hair. And my legs, they just started moving apart on their own, completely unbidden. So I don't know what's happening there.